Hello. In this video, we're going to start talking about how we solve quadratic equations. But before we get there, we have to talk about what a quadratic equation is. So the definition for a quadratic equation is that a quadratic equation in standard form is an equation that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers with a not equaling 0. Now, this extra little condition here with a not equaling 0 is very important because if a was 0, you'd have 0 times something, which is 0, and all this just kind of goes away, and you're left with bx plus c equals 0, and that's just a linear equation. So believe it or not, this extra condition here, that a is not equal to 0, is very important. Okay, so we're going to talk about how we solve these types of equations. And to solve these types of equations, there will be 4 different ways. The first way will be by factoring. The second way is going to be by the square root property. The third way is going to be by completing the square. And the fourth way is going to be by the quadratic formula. So for now, we're going to go ahead and just start by solving by factoring. And to solve by factoring, we have the zero product principle. And it says if a times b equals 0, then a equals 0 or b equals 0 or both equals 0. Now, why is this so important? Well, if a times b equals 0, well, notice that if you have a trinomial, you can factor that, right? A times b equals 0. So you'd set the first factor equal to 0 and set the second factor equals 0, solve both of those, and there's your solution. So these are the steps that we're going to use in order to solve by factoring. The first step is to get everything on one side and a 0 on the other. And be sure to put in descending order. Now what we mean by that, put the x squared term first, then the x term if it exists second, and then the c term here last if it exists. So these two are optional to exist. The x squared term must exist. The second step is to factor. Put it into 2 sets of parentheses equaling 0. So I'll just call this one the first and that one the second. And for the third step, set each factor equal to 0. In other words, take that first factor and set it equal to 0, and take that second factor and set it equal to 0. And then the fourth step is to just solve each new equation. And that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do for factoring trinomials. Now, the problem with this, the reason we don't just stick with factoring trinomials is because, well, frankly, not every quadratic equation can be solved by factoring, only certain ones. Okay, well, I believe that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Have fun.